Business news from the Capital Region. This is Washington Business Report with ABC7 National Correspondent Rebecca Cooper.
Thanks for joining us for a fresh look at business and finance in the Washington region. Coming up on today's show, what Tuesday's midterms mean for the business community, what we should read into the latest layoffs at Living Social, and whether the latest job numbers tell the whole story. Plus, in our small business spotlight, lessons in how following your passion and ignoring a business plan can make you a 35-year success with a cult following. Do you know this hidden gem in D.C.? But first, it's time for our Newsmaker One-on-One. Today, we talk to the man who attended GW on a basketball scholarship and went on to become one of the biggest names in Washington business. Now he's trying to pull off something else few people thought could be done. He's joining us today to talk about it. Russ Ramsey, co-founder of Friedman Billings Ramsey and CEO of Ramsey Asset Management. He's the man who built a local startup into a multi-billion-dollar investment banking and money management firms. He's respected worldwide, and now he's been tapped to bring the 2024 Olympics to Washington. Russ Ramsey, welcome to Washington Business Report. Not to say your job's impossible to start off with, but I was one of those who didn't think Washington had a chance. Now we're one of the 4 finalists in the nation. You've got the Olympic Committee coming to Washington to take a look at what we have to offer. What do we have to offer that makes you think we could win this? Well,
thank you, Rebecca, for having me here today. I have to say that there's nothing that I've had in my life that's been as inspiring as the opportunity to bring the world's largest sporting event to the nation's capital.
A man who's got 4 kids and one of the biggest resumes in Washington, that's saying a lot. What inspires you about it?
Well, there's millions of things that separate us, but there's this one common language that brings people together and unites us, and that's sport. And if you look over the history of the Olympic Games, it's been this event that has allowed the world to sort of, whether it's divided, whether things are good, whether they're bad, it's allowed for people to come together in those 17 days of the event. It's just the world kind of stops and people are able to sort of think beyond themselves.
It's a magical moment, but we also know the metrics, and any business person is going to look at that. Make the case for why Washington would want the Olympics when so many other cities have lost money. You know, Jim Dinegar from the Washington Board of Trade is one of the biggest backers of this. He insists this could be a winner for Washington. I'm not yet convinced. Make the case.
Well, I think if we look at the most recent Olympics in London 2012, it was a transformative event for London. They made money. They put 70,000 people to work who had been previously unemployed. They transformed the entire East End, so they created resources that they never would have before. And so when you look at Washington, it's the nation's capital. We have amazing transportation and infrastructure. We have tremendous venues. We have a backstop, which is really spectacular when it comes to, think of the National Mall as a backdrop and all the beautiful monuments and the rivers and really kind of uniting the Anacostia and the Potomac River. So, we really bring, as the nation's capital of the United States of America, really an amazing place. And it will have been 28 years if we're successful since the games were in America. So it would have been a whole generation of young people who would grow up without the game. So it's a really important time.
One of the costs is building a new infrastructure. You all make the case to the Olympic Committee and to D.C. residents that we're one of the few cities in the country that you say has some of the infrastructure already in place. How so?
Well, we have this amazing confluence of events where we've had not only great sports venues in the past 15 years that have been built, the Verizon Center, Nationals Park, Comcast Center out in Maryland, a whole bunch of venues. So we have more venues than we need to host the games. That's the one. 2, we have tremendous parkland and the National Park Service and this amazing thing called the National Mall and the Smithsonian, where we could actually have the games smattered around the city in a way that we take advantage of our transportation infrastructure, we take advantage of all of the tremendous growth that's already happening, all these new neighborhoods. And so, we really have, much like London did, we have the ability to kind of really bring the community together in a way that only the Olympics could do.
I have to admit it, I'm getting Olympic fever. I went from being a naysayer to a skeptic to starting to feel the momentum. So good luck as this happens, but we'd be remiss if we didn't talk to you about your business career because it's been such a phenomenal one, and clearly you like to win in anything that you do. So let's take a look at Friedman Billings Ramsey, FBR. 3 guys working together in a brokerage firm in the 1980s. You got your start as a salesman for Pitney Bowes. Friedman got his start as a history teacher. Billings went to University of Maryland, not a Harvard Biz School kind of guy. You all grew FBR into one of the 10 largest investment banks in the country. What were your rules for success that allowed you to swim in those kinds of waters? Because we all know those waters can be shark infested.
Well, Rebecca, hindsight's always 20/20, and I think I'd be a little bit disingenuous if I said that we had a playbook and knew all the rules and thought that we could actually, target out the future. But I will say, as I look back, that there's a couple keys to any successful endeavor. One is you have to have great partners, and you've already shared that initially. That each of us on our own, I think, would have had no chance of doing what we accomplished. But the three of us, which became 13 of us, which became 33 of us, which became 53 of us, and on, you have to have great partners. You have to have that great human capital. And in the case of the business world, at the end of the day, you're really marrying human capital with financial capital to create intellectual capital.
Well, you hear that a lot. That's kind of the mantra. You have to have great partners. But what does that mean? What did you and your partners bring to it? Was it intellect? Were you better researchers? Were you smarter mathematicians? What gave you insight into doing things like real estate investment trusts? You all were some of the first to create those, see the potential in them. What gave you that kind of insight and foresight?
Well, sure. I think you have to have a passion, and you have to really be committed to your art, whatever that is. One. Two, you have to be flexible. You have to be willing to fail, and you have to be willing to pick yourself back up and go again. You have to sell. You have to really be passionate about what it is you believe in, and understand that mathematically you're going to have to take a lot of no's, but you also have to believe at the end of the day, maybe they don't know what you do. And then you have to take advantage of your successes. When you do get momentum, when you actually get a little breakthrough, and you can actually, like you mentioned, read, when you have a chance to, at the beginning of a wave, and competition is going to come in and you're not going to be the first to have it, you have to really work hard and be tenacious about just seizing the moment and doing everything you can, outworking the competition, out hustling, and doing everything possible to make it happen.
Many people thought you all wouldn't make it through the recession. You went on to do other things beyond Freeman Billings Ramsey. Now you've got a large asset management, investment management company. What helped FBR survive the recession, and what made you stay in the game and keep growing? Sure.
Recessions and business cycles are an inevitability. If you have studied the history at all, you know that we go through a period of cycles. And so, number one, you always have to have staying power. You have to make sure that you structure yourself.
Lehman Brothers thought they did.
They thought they did, and we found that different. But Warren Buffett and others figured out what staying power is all about. And two, you have to put yourself in a position to be opportunistic. The great breakthroughs in life, the great opportunities have not happened during good times. They've happened in tears of distress when it looked like the world was coming to an end. That's when Silicon Valley reemerges. That's when Wall Street and the investment community has to stand up and take charge. That's when businesses really make a difference, is during the tough times. Anybody can succeed when things are going well. It's when times are tough that you have to really be thoughtful, and that's when you have to come together.
So it starts off as three guys at a brokerage firm that nobody knew what to expect, but now you're clearly a business success. Everyone comes to you. Everybody wants something from you. You've still got a business that you're running and managing. Ted Leonsis picks up the phone and calls you and says, your country needs you to lead this effort to get the Olympics. From this example, how do you decide what to say yes to and what to say no to? Because I'm sure you get lots of tempting offers. How does anyone make that decision of this is worth taking on?
Sure. Well, I try to be thoughtful about any opportunities like this that come about, and with this one, it was no less, because it's a big undertaking. It's obviously a very big undertaking. It's a full-time job, and it was something which I'm not afraid to fail. I've failed many times in my life, but I want to sort of feel like we have a theory of the case, just like any athlete that goes on the field. I want to feel like we have a chance to win. And the more I did the research, the more I talked to Billy Payne and Peter Ueberroth and Mitt Romney and Sir Keith Mills, and Ted and I did our work, we found that there was a lot of enthusiasm about the games coming to America. And then when I looked at the nation's capital, and the fact that we're probably one of the few capitals ever not to host the games, it just felt like it was something we had to do.
You're in it to win it.
We're in it to win it.
Russ Ramsey, an honor to meet you. Thanks so much for joining us on Washington Business Report.
That's my pleasure.